It has been quite some time since the God of Thunder has held his own mallet aloft. Thor #1 returns. I'm Stan, and this is Detail Comics. What's up, everybody? This is an I Review, the show where I go over a comic book, its story, its art, give you my impressions, and let you know whether it's something you should go back to the comic book shop for or not. Make sure you subscribe to get more of these every single week. The book that I want to talk about is Thor #1 from Jason Aaron and Mike Del Mundo, and what this does is it reunites the Odinson with the actual mantle of being Thor. I know it's been his name and all that kind of stuff, but what it does is it gives us a very psychedelic look into this brand new world of Thor, the creation of multiple hammers, the conflict that he has to come into, and then a surprise look from Christian Ward at the future of King Thor, which is worth the price of admission itself. So let's dive in and see what the cosmic cards have thrown together for us. And now, a moment we've all been waiting for, the return of Jason Aaron's Thor, and now this time with Mike Del Mundo on art, which is going to be a relatively interesting choice. If you take a look at the first page, you see this very psychedelic-looking, different style of art, which we saw in Mark Waid's Avengers, which Mike Del Mundo is really known for, and I'm not going to lie, it can be a little bit off-putting for some people if you're not expecting it. However, it does bring this kind of stylistic and fun experience to everything, though people might look a little bit deformed. But as we see Thor Odinson with his shiny golden arm running through the jungle, we hear the reasons why he's at the Temple of Cyttorak to begin with. And that is because during the destruction of Asgardia, the weapons inside Odin's weapons vault have been scattered across the cosmos. And there's no telling exactly where they're going to be popping up. However, the Warlock's Eye, a powerful mind control artifact, has made its way into the Temple of Cyttorak, which is why he's here. And then facing off against these disciples, they inform him that no, Jarnbjorn will not be tasting their blood today. They will be tasting the blood of their champion, the unstoppable Juggernaut. So Cain Marko, freshly imbued with the powers of Cyttorak, becoming the most powerful of Juggernauts, faces off against Thor. And this is almost embarrassing because Thor's only got one arm. He doesn't even have the correct Mjolnir. He's no longer the Thor that Cain Marko once knew, and Cain Marko is more powerful than he's ever been in the past. And as he just smashes Thor in the face, we see even the stars and the POW dotted in the blood of the god as he cascades off this cliff headed towards a spiky doom, but he calls upon Screwbeard, who's been trying to make him a brand new weapon. They send it through the realms, and with a crackhoom, it lands itself into Thor's hands as he rises up full of raging thunder, and he smashes it across Juggernaut's face, only to find it break to pieces. Because it's not Mjolnir, it's just a facsimile, it's something that's not even close, and Juggernaut just smashes him again. But the cool thing, if you take a look at the art, when Thor tries to hit him, the stars are like rounded edged and smiling, just implying how little power he's actually putting on the Juggernaut. And the one thing that he needs is he needs every ounce of energy, every ounce of power that can be mustered by the weapons that have been created by Screwbeard. And then this rain of hammers bears down on everyone, and while they might not necessarily have the same inscription, the thing that you need in order to wield these is to be the motherfucking God of Thunder, as he calls down the lightning, electrocuting pretty much everyone in the area, reciting aloud, whosoever holds this hammer, if they be worthy, shall possess the power of Thor, picking up the most recent creation and smashing Cain Marko across the face, tooth falling from his face. And it's just such a cool moment to see Thor regain that kind of power and presence inside the comic books as he heads back to old Asgard, the new old stomping grounds of the Asgardians as they recover from the attack of the Mangog. And the conversations continue. So while this is a Marvel Fresh Start book allowing people to jump into the story of Thor, it gives you a lot of backstory into exactly what's happening. We know about the Mangog attack. We know that the Asgardians have had to relocate to old Asgard at the destruction of Asgardia. We know that there's the War of the Realms. We know that Uru is a very precious and resourceful metal. And as Heimdall looks out across the Bifrost, and look is a very relative term because he's lost his eyes in the fight with the Mangog, we have the conversations about how they need to recover from these things. So it's just putting further poignancy onto the experience that we had recently in the Mighty Thor. You see Odin standing there looking out into the cosmos, contemplating the most recent things that have happened to the Asgardians, and seeing his face after Thor comes to talk to him, we know that he pines for somebody, wondering if he's seen her, and we can only assume that he means his wife, Lady Freya. And as we bounce back over to Midgard, we see some sort of refugee camp for these Asgardians, these various other creatures, and Lady Solomon, aka Agent Rose Solomon of S.H.I.E.L.D., she's helping to assist in this project, but also Jane Foster, who's going through her cancer recovery, is is there to assist as well, but she's limited to about 4 different panels, and she pines for the hammer a touch, but until she's cancer-free, there's no way she's going to be having any kind of experience with that. But Lady Freya is the person that Thor came to talk to as she helps nurse Volstagg back to health. And while she doesn't care if Odin has asked for her or not, she does care whether Thor has seen his brother. And Thor just flies into a fit of rage, just absolutely devastated by the fact that she would care to see this man that stabbed her in the back, almost causing her to lose her own life, who's now currently, if you haven't been reading Avengers, one of the main antagonists inside that series, but also somebody that is just so influential and so important in the overall story, and he's just so pissed off. It's great. It's a great setup for the character, and it shows that kind of conflict that they're going to run into. And that's before he heads over to the South Ocean and faces off against Namor, looking for more treasures and things that have fallen to Earth. After finishing this fight, he brings a shark back, throws it in front of Thor on the docks, in front of some sort of boat, pulls out a gem of infinite suns, another artifact that is no longer a threat in the War of the Realms. And as Thor makes his way into this boat that he's using for some sort of residence at this point in time, you can see the scattered weapons all across, the chicken bones from his takeout, and unfortunately he's got an unwelcome house guest. It takes but a moment for them to go smashing outside of the boat and then beginning this kind of battle that ensues between the two of them. And it's just Thor being super pissed off at Loki, and Loki trying to justify exactly why he's done these things. But Thor's not in any kind of mood to listen to the lies of this god of mischief, as he just throws him back into the boat, and we see Thor just ready to chomp down on him, asking his new master if he's ready to murder his old master. But that does leave Loki offering his proposition, giving him the means necessary to travel between the realms and to stop the War of the Realms. But that's not necessarily something that Thor is ready to do on his own, as he reaches out and grabs Loki by the hair and pulls him into the portal, this encapsulating the entirety of the boat, and now they're in some sort of other realm, some sort of other area, and we're not necessarily sure of exactly where they landed, but it seems, as Loki announces it, that this is Niflheim, Hell, the land of the dead and war and ice. And it turns out that we see Balder the Brave with Scourge riding on the back of this giant monster truck with spiked wheels and skulls hanging from the edge of it. It's a relatively modern interpretation of exactly what would be going on in Hell, but it's still pretty metal nonetheless. And that's when we get into the backup story from Christian Ward and Jason Aaron, where we see King Thor in the far reaches of time, at the end of the universe, fighting against the last of the space sharks, with his granddaughters in tow as they kind of try to take down this conflict. But Thor hears prayers coming from Midgard, New Midgard, and he goes down and he sees Lady Jane, 270 plus years old, sitting there ready to pass into the next part of life. He offers to give her more power, which of course she refuses, asking whether there's still a heaven. It seems like the time of realms beyond realms has passed, leaving only this existence that she currently has, giving her a touch more pause, but still not enough to accept the offering of more life essence from the All-Father. And that's when we see the end of Lady Jane. And this implies an end that's greater than both of them, an end greater than King Thor, an end greater than that of Midgard itself. He confronts one of his granddaughters as Mjolnir comes smashing down to the ground, sent out across the cosmos, and he listens to the whispers of Mjolnir, of what's out in the great beyond, and it's something completely unexpected. He takes off into the sky, flying farther than he has in eons, thousands of centuries, and he finds nothing but death and blackness, calling himself nothing but a great fool as he saved New Midgard and let the universe die around it, being one of the greatest fools in all of existence. And that's when we see a yellow beam of fire just heading directly toward him, smashing him in the side, just waiting to be smited with this hammer that he now possesses. And he looks at this attacker, ready to devastate him, only to find we see Wolverine, imbued with the power of the Phoenix, there at the end of the universe with him. And that's where we end issue number 1. So the story of Thor and the War of the Realms and the hunt for the artifacts that are going to try and balance this actual war, the reclamation of these various items from Asgardia's weapons vault, that is going to continue on in issue number 2. But the story, the backup story from issue number 1, where we deal with King Thor as he faces down the end of the universe itself, and now as he comes face to face with Wolverine empowered by the Phoenix, that is going to continue in issue number 5. So there's two very distinct storylines that are going to be happening. We have the current timeline of Thor, where he's reclaiming his power as the God of Thunder before he becomes the All-Father, before he becomes King Thor, as he tries to take down Malekith in this War of the Realms. And we have this end of time storyline, where we could possibly see Ego the Living Planet with the power of the Necro Sword, where we could possibly see the return of Gore the God Butcher. There's a lot of different things that can happen in these varying timelines, and I'm really excited to see exactly what's going on in this. Mike Del Mundo's art, again, is an acquired taste. I didn't really like it inside the Avengers book with Mark Waid. However, it does seem to fit a little bit better inside something a little bit more magical, mystical, and cosmic, like Thor, as he kind of expands his influence on the rest of the realms. As for Christian Ward in the backup story, his art is always phenomenal. I've loved every bit of art that he's ever done. He was fantastic on Black Bolt, and the way that he kind of draws this essence, I'm really excited to see where he goes in this story as well. But I want to know what you guys think. I think that Thor number 1 is a success, and it's a great way to kick off Fresh Start. It brings in new readers, it provides them with enough information so that way they can be up to speed, but it doesn't necessarily oversaturate it. There's a few heavy pages of dialogue, but not nearly enough to drag it down. So hit me up in the comments down below, and we can start that conversation about Thor number 1 and where it's going. But as always, if you like what you see, hit the like button. Don't forget to subscribe to get more news, reviews, and commentary on comic books, comic book movies, comic book TV shows and games, and anything and everything inside the world of comics.